The arrogant challenge. The void of space stretched endlessly before the Kraxan Dominion's third battle fleet, its 1,000 warships arranged in perfect formation like predators circling prey. At the center of this massive display of military might floated a single vessel, unremarkable in appearance, bearing the blue and white insignia of the United Earth Coalition. The human ship looked almost pathetic against the backdrop of sleek Kraxan destroyers and battlecruisers, each one bristling with plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood on the command deck of his flagship, the inevitable Victory, his forearms clasped behind his elongated torso as he studied the tactical display. His species had conquered 17 star systems in the past century alone, and each victory had been swift and decisive. The Kraxan were apex predators of the galaxy, their military doctrine built on overwhelming force and psychological dominance. Yet here was a single human vessel, requesting passage through Kraxan-controlled space as if they had any right to make such demands. The communications officer, a younger Kraxan with freshly molted scales, turned from his station with confusion evident in his 3 eyes. Supreme Commander, the human vessel continues to broadcast on all frequencies. They claim to be a diplomatic ship on a mission of cultural exchange. Vexthor's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. The very notion that these soft, bilateral creatures thought they could simply traverse Kraxan space, without tribute or submission, was amusing. Inside the human vessel, Ambassador Maya Rodriguez sat calmly in her command chair, surrounded by a crew of 12. The bridge was modest compared to Kraxan standards, with clean lines and functional displays rather than the ornate decorations favored by the warrior race. Her first officer, Lieutenant Commander Chen Wei, stood beside her, his face betraying none of the tension that surely gripped them all. "Ambassador, they're not responding to our diplomatic protocols," he reported quietly. "The fleet has maintained aggressive posture for the past 3 hours." Maya nodded slowly, her fingers drumming a patient rhythm on the armrest. She had studied the Kraxan extensively before accepting this mission. Their culture valued strength above all else, viewing diplomacy as weakness unless backed by credible force. The problem was that humanity had chosen a different path after the Great Awakening, when they had discovered the true nature of their place in the cosmos. They had capabilities that would terrify most species, but using them went against everything they had chosen to become. "Open a direct channel to their flagship," Maya ordered, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had negotiated peace treaties in war zones across 3 solar systems. "Let me speak to their commander directly." The view screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of Supreme Commander Vexthor. His exoskeleton gleamed under the harsh lighting of his bridge, and his primary eyes focused on Maya with predatory intensity. Vexthor spoke first, his translator converting his harsh clicking language into accented English. "Human vessel, you trespass in Kraxan space. Your single ship stands against the might of 1,000. You will surrender immediately for processing, or you will be destroyed. There is no third option." The commander's secondary arms gestured to emphasize his point, a display meant to intimidate. Maya stood slowly, smoothing her diplomatic uniform as she did so. Her expression remained neutral, almost serene. "Supreme Commander Vexthor, I am Ambassador Maya Rodriguez of the United Earth Coalition. We seek only peaceful passage through this sector to reach the Andari Collective for a scheduled cultural exchange. We have no hostile intentions and wish only to proceed on our mission of peace." The Kraxan commander's mandibles spread in what she recognized as a sneer. "Peace." The word dripped with contempt. "Peace is what the weak call submission. Your species is new to the galactic stage, human. You have not learned that in the void only strength matters. Your peaceful intentions mean nothing when you cannot enforce them." Around the bridge of the inevitable Victory, other Kraxan officers watched with interest. This was more entertainment than they had experienced in cycles. The human female stood there, small and fragile-looking, speaking of peace to a species that had never known defeat. Some of them wondered if humans were simply too naive to understand their position, or if they were genuinely that foolish. Maya took a deep breath, knowing that what came next would determine the fate of everyone involved. "Commander, I must inform you that this vessel, while designated for diplomatic purposes, is fully capable of defending itself. We do not seek conflict, but we will not submit to unlawful detention or aggression. I strongly urge you to allow us peaceful passage." The bridge of the Kraxan flagship erupted in harsh laughter. The tactical officer nearly fell from his station, so amused was he by the human's words. One ship defending against 1,000? The humans had shown no military capabilities of note in their brief interactions with other species. They were known as traitors and diplomats, not warriors. Vexathor raised one of his primary arms, silencing his crew. "Human," he said, leaning forward toward the screen, "you amuse me. Tell me, what weapons does your diplomatic vessel carry? How many torpedo tubes? What classification of shields?" His tone was mocking, like an adult speaking to a child who claimed they could fight a storm. Maya's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted, a hardness that hadn't been there before. "Supreme Commander, humanity learned long ago that true strength isn't always visible. We discovered something about ourselves when we reached the stars, something that changed how we view conflict and power. We chose to turn away from what we could become, but that doesn't mean we've forgotten how to defend ourselves." Chenwei glanced at his ambassador, recognizing the subtle shift in her stance. He had served with her for 5 years and had seen her negotiate with warlords, pirates, and zealots. But he had also seen her during the Titan Station incident, when pirates had thought to take human hostages. The memory still sent chills down his spine. The Kraxan commander was no longer amused. His species had developed an acute sense for danger over millions of years of evolution, and something about the human's words triggered an instinct he couldn't quite identify. Still, he had 1,000 ships. Whatever secret weapons the humans thought they possessed couldn't possibly match such overwhelming firepower. "You speak in riddles, human," Vexthor said, his voice dropping to a lower register. "The Kraxan Dominion does not negotiate with single ships. You have 1 minute to power down your systems and prepare for boarding. Any resistance will result in immediate destruction." He cut the communication channel without waiting for a response. On the human vessel, Maya turned to her crew. Her face showed genuine sadness. "Prepare the Prometheus protocol," she said quietly. "Authorization. Rodriguez Alpha 771. The bridge fell silent as her crew exchanged glances. They had all hoped it wouldn't come to this. The Prometheus protocol hadn't been activated in 17 years, not since humanity had collectively decided to pursue the path of peace. "Ambassador," Chenwei said softly, "are you certain? Once we reveal this capability, there's no taking it back. The galaxy will know what humanity is truly capable of." Maya nodded slowly, returning to her command chair. "They've left us no choice, Chen. We tried diplomacy. We tried reason. Now we must remind them why humanity chose peace not from weakness, but from wisdom." The timer on the Kraxan flagship counted down as Vexthor watched the human vessel with growing anticipation. His fleet was already in optimal firing positions, weapons charged and targeting solutions locked. At his command, enough firepower to crack a small moon would converge on that single ship. Part of him almost respected the humans for their stubborn refusal to surrender, even if it was ultimately foolish. 10 seconds, his tactical officer announced. "The human vessel shows no signs of powering down. In fact, Commander, energy readings are increasing." Vexthor dismissed the concern with a gesture. "Let them charge whatever primitive weapons they have. It will make no difference," but as the countdown reached 0, something unexpected happened. The human ship didn't fire weapons or raise shields in any conventional sense. Instead, it began to change. What had appeared to be a simple diplomatic vessel started to unfold like an origami flower, revealing layers within layers of technology that defied immediate comprehension. The space around the ship began to shimmer and distort, as if reality itself was bending to the vessel's will. The revelation of humanity. The transformation of the human vessel took exactly 3 seconds, but to the Kraxan fleet, it felt like an eternity. What had been a modest diplomatic craft unfolded into something that challenged their understanding of physics and engineering. The ship didn't grow larger in any conventional sense. Instead, it seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, its true form flickering between states of being that made the Kraxan's advanced sensors scream in protest. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood frozen at his command station, his forearms hanging limply at his sides as his mind struggled to process what he was witnessing. The tactical officer's voice cut through his shock. "Commander, our targeting systems cannot achieve lock. The human vessel appears to be existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Every time we acquire a firing solution, it shifts to a different probability." Around them, the 1,000 ships of the Kraxan fleet held their positions, weapons charged, but unable to fire effectively. It was as if the human ship had become a ghost, solid enough to see but impossible to touch. The space around it rippled with strange energies that made nearby Kraxan vessels' shields flicker and spark. Maya Rodriguez's voice came through on all channels, calm and steady despite the situation. Supreme Commander Vexthor, what you are witnessing is humanity's greatest secret and our greatest shame. 23 years ago, we discovered that human consciousness has a unique interaction with quantum fields. We can manipulate probability itself, bend reality to our will, become living weapons of unimaginable power. The entire galaxy could have been ours for the taking. The statement hung in the void between the two forces. On every Kraxan bridge, officers looked to their commanders for guidance, but none came. They had encountered advanced technology before, had faced enemies with superior firepower or tactics. But this was something else entirely, something that challenged the very foundations of their warrior culture. Maya continued, her image appearing on every screen in the Kraxan fleet simultaneously. Though the human ship hadn't hacked their systems in any detectable way, we call it the quantum consciousness interface. Every human has the potential to merge with specially designed technology, to become one with their vessels, their weapons, their very environment. We could phase through your shields, appear inside your ships, turn your own molecules against you. A single human ship, properly equipped and with a trained operator, could theoretically take on an entire fleet. Vexthor found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper that his communications officer had to amplify. If you possess such power, why do you not rule the galaxy? Why do you speak of peace and diplomacy when you could simply take what you want? The sadness in Maya's eyes was genuine and profound. Because, Commander, we looked into that abyss and saw what we would become. We ran simulations, saw the futures where humanity embraced this power fully. In every scenario, we became the monsters we had always feared. Power without wisdom, strength without compassion. We would have been conquerors, yes, but we would have lost our souls in the process. The human ship pulsed with energy, and suddenly, every Kraxan vessel's weapon systems went offline simultaneously. Not damaged, not destroyed, simply deactivated at a quantum level. The molecular bonds in their weapon components had been temporarily altered, rendering them inert. It was a demonstration of power so precise and overwhelming that several younger Kraxan officers fell to their knees in shock. Lieutenant Chen Wei's voice joined the transmission. We chose a different path. We limited ourselves, created strict protocols for when this technology could be used, only in absolute defense, never for conquest. We became diplomats and traders, scientists and artists, because we knew that if we became warriors with this power, we would become something terrible. Every human ship capable of this transformation requires multiple crew members to agree unanimously before activation. It's our safeguard against tyranny. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Kraxan fleet. Their entire worldview was built on the principle that might made right, that the strong ruled over the weak by natural law. But here was a species that possessed ultimate strength and had chosen to limit themselves, to pursue peace not from weakness but from a position of absolute power. A younger Kraxan commander from one of the escort vessels broke protocol to speak directly. But why reveal this to us now? Why show us your true capabilities if you wish to remain peaceful? The question echoed what many in the fleet were thinking. Maya stood from her command chair, her form seeming to shimmer slightly as the quantum field around her ship fluctuated. Because, Commander, sometimes the greatest act of peace is to show others why you chose it. We could destroy your entire fleet in seconds. We could phase quantum bombs directly into your cores, rewrite the molecular structure of your hulls, trap you in temporal loops until you went mad. But we won't. We choose not to every single day, because we believe there's a better way. The human ship began to shift again, its form contracting back toward its original configuration, but maintaining the quantum distortion field. As it did, the Kraxan weapon systems came back online, fully functional but somehow feeling different to their operators. They worked perfectly, but everyone who touched them could feel it, the knowledge that they functioned only because the humans allowed it. Vexthor's second-in-command, Sub-Commander Thakval, spoke up for the first time. You could conquer the galaxy and slave us all, and you choose not to? This makes no sense. Power exists to be used. The strong dominate the weak. This is the way of nature. Chen Wei responded this time, his voice carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom. Nature also teaches us about symbiosis, Commander, about cooperation and mutual benefit. The strongest ecosystem isn't one with a single apex predator, but one with balance and diversity. Humanity learned that our power came with a choice: become gods of destruction or guardians of peace. We chose to guard. The quantum field around the human ship pulsed once more, and suddenly every Kraxan vessel received a data packet directly into their cores. It contained the full history of humanity's discovery of their quantum consciousness abilities, the debates that had raged for years about how to handle it, the decision to lock away their greatest weapons except in the most dire circumstances. It showed the 13 times in 23 years that the capability had been activated, each time to protect innocent lives from those who would destroy them. But perhaps most shocking to the Kraxan was what the data didn't contain. Any attempt to gather intelligence on their fleet, no stolen technical specifications, no invasion of their tactical networks. The humans had demonstrated they could have taken everything, learned every secret, and they had chosen to take nothing. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood in silence for a long moment, his forearms now crossed in what his species recognized as deep contemplation. His entire life had been devoted to the principle of strength through force. He had risen through the ranks by being the strongest, the most ruthless, the most willing to do whatever it took to win, and now he stood before a power that could end him with a thought, and they were asking for nothing more than safe passage. "Ambassador Rodriguez," he finally said, his voice carrying across the void between them, "you have shown us something today that will require much thought and discussion among my people. We have built our entire civilization on the principle that strength determines worth. You have shown us strength beyond our comprehension. Yet you use it only to protect, never to conquer." Maya nodded, understanding the profound shift she was asking of the Kraxan commander. "Change is never easy, Supreme Commander. We humans struggled with it for years. Some still do. There are those among us who believe we should use our power to impose peace on the galaxy, to force everyone to behave according to our values. But forced peace isn't peace at all. It's just another form of tyranny." The human ship completed its transformation back to its original form, looking once again like a simple diplomatic vessel. But everyone in the Kraxan fleet now knew the truth. They had seen behind the mask, glimpsed the titan that chose to walk softly among them. "Your request for passage is granted," Vexthor announced, his voice carrying to his entire fleet. "More than that, Ambassador Rodriguez. I would request that you accept an escort through our space, not as prisoners, but as honored guests." His mandibles clicked uncertainly around the unfamiliar words. "We have much to learn from your species." The bridge of the inevitable victory fell silent as the crew absorbed their commander's words. No conquered species had ever been designated as honored guests. It was unprecedented, a fundamental shift in Kraxan protocol that would send ripples throughout their entire civilization. Maya smiled, the first genuine expression of warmth she had shown since the encounter began. "We would be honored, Supreme Commander, and perhaps when we've completed our mission with the Andari Collective, we could return to discuss cultural exchange programs. We have found that understanding between species grows best through shared knowledge and experience." As the combined fleet began to move through space, the human vessel at its center protected by 1,000 Kraxan warships, something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. Word would spread of the humans who wielded godlike power but chose to remain mortal, who could conquer but chose to connect, who showed strength through restraint. Sub-Commander Thakaval approached his Supreme Commander as they watched the human vessel on their screens. "Sir, do you believe them? Could they really destroy us all if they chose?" Vexthor was quiet for a moment before responding. "I believe, Sub-Commander, that we have been given a glimpse of what true strength looks like. Not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to know when not to. The humans have chosen to be our teachers rather than our conquerors. We would be fools not to learn." The data packet the humans had shared began to circulate through the Kraxan fleet, and with it came questions that would reshape their society. If ultimate power didn't corrupt absolutely, if strength could coexist with compassion, if the mightiest warriors were those who chose not to fight, then what did that mean for a culture built entirely on conquest? As they traveled through space, Maya Rodriguez sat back in her chair, exhaustion finally showing on her face. Chen Wei stood beside her, understanding the weight of what they had just done. "Do you think they'll truly change?" he asked quietly. Maya watched the cracks in escort formation on her display, saw how they had shifted from an aggressive pattern to a protective one. Change is never instant, Chen, but we've planted a seed. The Kraxen are warriors, yes, but they're also intelligent. They'll realize that there's strength in choosing peace, power, and showing mercy. It might take generations, but the idea is there now. The transmission from Earth came through on a secured quantum channel, Admiral Janet Park's face appearing on Maya's private screen. Ambassador, we've been monitoring the situation. The Council wants to know if you believe the Prometheus Protocol revelation was necessary. Maya straightened in her chair, her diplomatic training reasserting itself. Admiral, the Kraxen respect only strength. By showing them ours and then choosing not to use it, we've given them something their culture has never encountered before. A paradox that challenges their fundamental beliefs. They'll either evolve their thinking or risk being left behind as the galaxy changes around them. Either way, humanity's secret is safer with them knowing and respecting it than with them viewing us as weak and attempting to conquer us. The Admiral nodded slowly. The Council agrees with your assessment. You're authorized to proceed with cultural exchange proposals if the Kraxen show continued interest. Park paused, then added with a slight smile. And, Ambassador? Well done. You've possibly prevented a war without firing a single shot. As the transmission ended, Maya looked around her small bridge at her dedicated crew. Each of them had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might have to reveal humanity's deepest secret, knowing that doing so would change everything. They had trusted her judgment, followed her into what could have been certain death, and maintained their composure throughout. The Kraxen flagship sent another message, this time from several of the younger commanders requesting permission to ask questions about human philosophy and governance. Maya approved the cultural exchange, knowing that every conversation would be another step toward understanding. In the void of space, 1,000 warships escorted a single diplomatic vessel, not because they had to, but because they chose to. It was a sight that would be remembered in galactic history as the day the mighty Kraxen Empire learned that true strength sometimes whispers instead of shouts, protects instead of destroys, and chooses peace not from weakness but from wisdom. The journey to the Andari Collective would take 3 more days through Kraxen space. 3 days for minds to change, for perspectives to shift, for the galaxy to become a little bit larger and a little bit more connected, and at the center of it all, one small human ship carried the weight of a species' secret and the hope of a peaceful future. As stars wheeled overhead and the fleet moved through the cosmic dark, Ambassador Maya Rodriguez allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. They had faced down 1,000 ships with words instead of weapons, changed hearts instead of destroying bodies, and proved that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their quantum consciousness abilities, but in their conscious choice not to abuse them. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but today, humanity had shown that there was another way forward. A way where the strong protected the weak, where power served wisdom, and where a single ship could stand against 1,000 not through force but through the courage to be vulnerable, to trust and to believe in the better nature of all sentient beings. The story of the encounter would spread throughout known space, carried by traders and diplomats, warriors and scholars. And with it would spread a simple question that would echo through the corridors of power on 100 worlds. If humanity possesses such power and chooses peace, what does that say about those who possess less power and choose war? It was a question that would reshape the galaxy. One conversation at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of understanding at a time. And it had all started with a single ship facing down 1,000, armed with nothing more than truth, wisdom, and the courage to show mercy from a position of absolute strength.